Bly is here, ByuN is here. Thankfully, they were, as I said, awake, but also paying attention to their Skype. I mean, to be there at, I guess, 2 hours for the first best of seven, which, if anyone else had in games, would probably have hit and then maybe a bit over. But those were not just, that was not just a 4-0, it was also like a fairly quick 4-0. So it was all types of awkward. I tend to be around at like 10:30ish KST. So I don't think I messed up their day or anything like that. I think they were both. Well, Bly might have just been watching or finishing up the NSL. I think ByuN was just practicing anyways, as he told me he was in a game, which I assume was a StarCraft game, because ByuN. I mean, there's always like talk about what player plays the most, and oh my god, they don't have any passion to play another game, and like all that bullshit and whatnot. ByuN is a guy that is just. I think he's by far the most passionate StarCraft player I think ever. Like, not because I'm totally biased to him and we all love ByuN and stuff, but that this guy literally gets addicted to streaming. Like, he'll stream for like 16 hours or more, despite having like what I think is bad wrists. And he's like always playing StarCraft. Like, he legitimately enjoys the game to like a huge extent that even when he's not playing competitively, like he wasn't for like a year, he was still like topping the Grandmaster ladder and shit. So pretty sure he's playing StarCraft up until this point. Yes, I am solo casting. That's my that's my co-caster, solo cast. ByuN AFK'd. I tell him lie here. Doo-doo-doo. They gotta call the coin flip. Can't think of why ByuN isn't already in a team. I think ByuN's in a very interesting position, honestly. He does kind of like fade in and out so quickly that I wonder if he is even interested in finding another team. The last team he was on didn't exactly treat him super well. And there was definitely some conflicts with that, so he might not have the best experiences with teams either, because the team before that was Prime, if you'll remember. And while he wasn't on Prime during all the fiasco stuff, I don't know, it probably affected him a little bit. So I'm just gonna ask ByuN, heads or tails? Because no one's responding to me. No one loves me. Tails wins. ByuN. That's a 7. There we go. Now we might get things rocking and rolling. Bly is in the chat channel, but just, I mean, he's not AFK, he's just not responding, so that's great. Doo-doo-doo. First will be King Sejong. Choose map. Okay, make sure they're tabbed in. So I think what's going on right now, and I guess the overall thing that's going on right now, okay, before I go into what I'm guessing is happening, ByuN, as far as I know, is comfortably in his house, or wherever he lives, and is playing in a very comfortable position. Great. He's also just like generally good. Bly is actually in China. So that helps on one hand, on one hand, he can play in the Korean server and not have to swap between EU, Korea, or make the decision to go on, like, North American Central, I think it would be. So that helps, but on the other, it means that he is in maybe not the most comfortable of positions. I think what he's doing is playing at the venue for the NSL, that he asked if he could, stay a little bit later and play, which I think is the most ideal thing that could happen for him. So he probably has his mouse and his keyboard and whatnot, and it's definitely better than hotel internet on a laptop, but It's not exactly as comfy as being in the house. I think that as far as jet lag and stuff goes, Bly's probably really fine. As what's nice about the Chinese leagues, I mean, you can make fun of like the Chinese production all the time. It just seems to be a very bad luck when it comes to tournaments in China. You know, they're at bad times generally, right? Because they start like late for North America, which is pretty bad. And they always seem to have like sound problems or video problems or something like that. They apparently treat their players really well. So like the NSL, for instance, I think they flew out like on Saturday or Friday or something like that. And they were playing only like not even once a day. I think Bly is unfortunately already out, but the point is he's been in China for almost a week at this point and is returning on, I think, Monday. So he should be pretty comfortable. But he's not here, Bly. Bly, it says you're not AFK, so what are you doing? What are you doing to me, StarCraft? If he's AFK, just tell me the truth. Oh my god, they both were in the wrong channel somehow. Wow, do you guys want to guess what Bly's map choice was for second map? Oh, and I'll give you like 15 seconds to guess. 15, 14, 13. Okay, I'm bored. It was only 5 seconds. It's Dasan Station is second. Interesting stuff. Did I tell them the wrong channel? No, I put it all in correct. Yeah, okay. I don't know. That was just me. Whatever. Fine. Whatever. Point is, we're finally starting to get things going, although ByuN seems to be kind of AFK, like all tabbed for now. That's great. I'm just basically gonna, like, just cast the map choices, not even vetoes, map choices, as I would a StarCraft game. Now it's ByuN's turn, and he says, oh, so, I mean, this is slowly gonna get faster and faster? Maybe? There you go. So, King Seiton Station, Dasan, Frost. I'm gonna write these down. There's so much in-between discussion going on. Frost, and then no vetoes, best of 7. So they gotta potentially play all the maps. New Gettysburg, Frozen. They're almost there. Almost there! Hey, Zombie, saw you in GSL stream. Yes, I was in all the streams. I was in Wardy stream chat. I was in the GSL stream chat. For a time, I was even in the Flash Africa chat. Because I thought maybe it would be his first-person view, and it wasn't. Wait. Frozen... Oasis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Galactic. That's odd that Galactic would be final in both semifinals. I always consider that a decent-ish map. Interesting. Games, match point. Let's get him in here. Let's do it. All right. So now let's actually cast some StarCraft. That'd be great. So I quickly gave him the rundown of how it's gonna go. So every 2 games, you're gonna have a short commercial break, and then when it gets to match point, whether that's a 3-0 or if it's you know 3-2, like whatever, there'll be a 3-minute break. So they are ready to go. Let's do it. If you have not been paying attention to the overlay, you need to have audio cues, which some of you... Oh, Jesus! Oh, okay. Bly needed a second, so... I assumed his okay was like, okay, go. That might have been my bad. But anyways, if you need some audio cues about who sponsors this, Ting has sponsored both Season 1, which went fantastic, and of course now Season 2, which was provided because we got those 40 signups for Ting, which is great. You guys actually like the service, and you did sign up for it. So that's kind of the same goal we're looking for here. So go to bttv.ting.com to look at a bunch of different options. I mean, they have phones on there and Tinkrit and all that stuff, but also using Ting as your mobile phone service provider if you're in the US is also, I think, what they're really trying to sell you on. Now Bly is actually ready. There we go. He probably remembered that, like, you know, his camera hotkey or something was different and changed it, so not too big of a deal. Anyway, I now have a cat with me too, so hopefully he doesn't press the pause button, which has happened in the past. He's a good kitty, ain't ya? Yes, you are. And we're gonna get into the next semi-final. Solar has already beaten Patience 4-0 if you're just now tuning in. Fairly quick series, so apologies if you're expecting, like me, for this to not be starting for like another hour, for instance. But hopefully you are getting in here as soon as possible. As soon as you saw that tweet, because this might be a very surprising match. It might be a stomp. I'm gonna be honest, right? Like, we gotta be honest when it comes to ByuN versus a Zerg. But that's something we had to be honest about with Neeb too, and then suddenly Bly 3-0's Neeb, and I believe 22 minutes. Bly actually was talking to me about that earlier, because he was making a joke about how ByuN would probably beat him very quickly. But as I mentioned during the break, which is a very long break, so probably didn't catch it, Bly is not in the ideal scenario. It is better in the fact that he is in, he can play on the Korean server, no problem, as opposed to being in Europe trying to play on the Korean server. But it is one where it's like, yeah, maybe his hotkeys are a little messed up because he went to one of the practice stations, you know, and he didn't actually have that set up quite yet. Or, you know, maybe the equipment's actually, like, he's not even in the practice section, he's like in someone's office where the equipment sucks. Like, I have no idea. Right? So apparently his screen is giving him some trouble. Well, that's not so good. In the absolute worst case scenario, that Bly not only says that he has trouble, but he starts, like, just dropping straight up, and it's just bad. There's gonna have to be some, I guess, decisions made. So it's a little bit more awkward because Neeb was on backup if Bly just, you know, he came in an hour before and was like, look, I can't actually do anything, the hotel internet doesn't work, and they won't let me play the venue. If that had happened, Neeb replaces him, and it's not so much of a problem. But say that Bly starts, like, dropping out in game number 2 or 3 and just can't ever get back, that might be more of a rewards win to ByuN. I actually am not quite sure what happened, but ideally that doesn't happen. Okay.
Game resumed.
That's weird. Oh, I guess they wanted me to fairly do it, but probably should have counted down. You know what? They're fine. They're great. I'm usually pretty good at counting down as referee, but I'm doing a lot of things at once right now, right? Just don't blame me if that means that they didn't make an SCV on time. Thank you. Very much. We had something odd with the Twitch alerts. So, KaiMag12 resub for 7 months, but according to the Twitch event list, you also were like a new sub. So that's just wonky, isn't it? But thank you for the resub. And I don't think I've actually done the intros yet. So let's quickly do that because Bly is doing Bly things. In the top left, as the Red Terran, he is ByuN. And the bottom right, as the Blue Zerg, he is a former Acer Bly. He's Bly! I guess he still has his account in Korea, so womp womp. Of course, not on a team currently, as far as I know. He hasn't joined one. Pretty sure. If you count on Fire as a team, I guess he's that one. But look at this. This is very much so Bly. A proxy hatchery. He proxied hatcheried Neeb all damn day long, and he was able to 3-0 Neeb. And the thing is that while the differences in proxy hatches between Terran versus Protoss, they're different. You know, generally I think nowadays it's Roach Ravager rushes versus Terran, and Spinecrawler rushes versus Protoss. The point is, proxy hatchery is technically still, like, viable, you know, quotation mark viable, in both of those matchups. And to see it versus ByuN, who I think he realizes is a very formidable opponent, and everyone else realizes as a very scary opponent is probably worth the attempt. Now, unfortunately, in a best of 7, you have an even greater chance as the defensive player, so in this case ByuN, to figure out what you're going up against. So while Bly might even get like 2 games easy peasy because of this build, I'm not quite so sure about that. But even if you did, I feel like that can't last you all 4 games, right? But it lasted him quite a while versus Neeb, so we'll see. Of course, the Reaper sees the lack of a hatchery, and he's like, wait a second. You know, if this was TvZ, maybe he's like, okay, I just took this one over here. But now I very quickly realize what's going on. If ByuN did any research whatsoever into Bly, then, you know, he would have seen that, you know, how did my opponent get here? Well, he proxy hatched. And while maybe he doesn't know the exact proxy hatch versus Terran, he would have only seen it versus Protoss if he had watched those games. The idea is, you know, he's gonna cheese me in some way. I do believe ByuN has faced Bly before, though. Like, I am, like, nearly 100% certain about that, because they both play in a lot of European timed tournaments. And ByuN did have to deal with this, so he should have a bit more knowledge of how to defend against it. Because this really is, like, even if you scout it, there's not much you can do about it, since you're gonna have, like, only a Reaper and, like, a handful of Marines. But the difference between knowing how to defend against it and just guessing at how to defend against it is huge. It's very different. So the bunker being up is already pretty good. That kind of like makes Bly reconsider going up like this, but he does. Getting a tank out, very important. And in general, getting rid of the Ravager is very important. So Bly, he went up there, he saw an opportunity, maybe hoping the tank wasn't out, but more importantly, I think he wanted to micro more with the Ravagers. They got stuck over here, though, and the Marines just, like, chomped them down there. And that's not what you really want. You want to use the Ravager's range. That was actually very bold of Bly, in general, to go up that ramp. He broke down the supply depot so quickly, I think he thought the timing was on his side. But it's still tricky, you know. ByuN should be winning this game now, but sometimes the second, third, and fourth attack is the one that you underestimate, you know, especially when it comes to Bly. He's about persistence. Yeah, I don't know why that is, though. Sorry, reading chat about the on pause thing, and I'm like, was that a thing before? What made that a thing now? Is that a change? Did that change recently? I don't know. But anyways, the Temenian, 3 subs for 15 months in a row. Thank you. Get well soon, Rifkin. I don't think he's around, but I'm sure he hears your thoughts telepathically. Ooh, almost gets that Overlord. Overlord pretty important. Does provide that high ground vision for the Ravagers. As I said, this can still be a complicated defense, but once your natural is retaken, it's generally game over unless you've lost like 20 SCVs. And even then, I think the Terran's still in a better position, as this really truly is all in from Bly. There's not much macro to be done. There's, you know, the natural's not down, you can only mine so much with this base, and you don't have a lot of production. Eventually, ByuN will just out-macro him. But he's got his Ling speed done. He tries to get on top of the tanks. Unfortunately, a little bit late to getting on top of the tanks. He does get the high ground vision, as stated before, after losing both of his overlords. A third one comes in, though. They're trying to replace it, but did not kill the tanks, which is definitely the most unfortunate part. And ByuN realizes, like, oh shit, like, maybe I gotta actually take this seriously again. So he walls off in a bit of a hurry here as he loses all of his fodder for his tanks. But 4 tanks is still a lot of damage, and he does hold. GG, ByuN takes the first game. Alright, next map is Dasan Station. That was Bly's choice. Apollo came up here, rubbed his butt everywhere, got fur everywhere, and then just left because he's a butt. ByuN and Bly, there we go. So as a reminder, this is the last match to be cast today. Unfortunately, it's gone pretty quickly, but that was always a chance, I suppose, if the matches were that lopsided. Which I really didn't think Patience for Solar was, but Patience just couldn't Couldn't handle Zerg today, man. But as this is the last match, you know, we'll have our determined finals and our determined third place match, which will both be played tomorrow. And then after the TING finals tomorrow, I will be casting an additional little bit of a show match between USA and France, just to round things out, and then back to the daily or regularly scheduled broadcasting of Base Trade TV. Good times, good times. And then I'm off to Montreal, and screw you suckers, I'm gone. Just kidding. I'm not bragging that much about going to Montreal, but it's kind of a big deal. You know, me going as a total casual, not even casting or anything, but still, I get to see really cool people. And if any of you are going to Montreal, then I would definitely appreciate if you stop by and say hi. If you don't like me, but you watch the channel, then don't stop by. That would be appreciated, thank you. Just to be clear. But here we go again. Let's get these intros out of the way. Up 1-0 now in the bottom right. He is the red Terran ByuN. And in the top middle-ish kind of position, left-ish, dash on station, please. It is the blue Zerg Bly, who is also kind of spawning in the very middle right position. So this is the funny base where you could technically start a little bit of droning because it's a gold if the siege really lasts that long. But it's pretty funny. I mean, this was, you know, hatch first, just in a very odd location. And ByuN, with the Reaper, I think doesn't scout this unless the hatchery's done. Which it might just be, because I didn't think the creep is far enough. But if it's not done, then the Reaper... Well, the Reaper would see that, right? Yeah, I think it would see it. I feel like I've seen this before, and we were kind of surprised by the path the Reaper took. But I might be wrong. That might have been another map. That might have been Ruins, actually. Yeah, I think it was Ruins of Endion. Anywho, so it looks like Bly needs 2 minutes to try and switch his screens because it's really derping out. So he'll let me know whenever he's ready. Soccer. ByuN, please. I guess he is talking to a European. That's kind of what they can bond over, because I can't bond over this. Soccer? Football? Whatever you call it. Dovin Woof. Thank you for the 22-month resub. Bly only cheese, no skill, just defend the all-ins, easy GG. Yeah, okay, maybe. Bly did cheese 3 times in a row versus Neeb, and that's certainly something that has come along with him as he has been known for the last... Since when has Bly been really popular? I want to say like 4 years? 3 years? I don't think he was super popular 2010 to 2012, but I think he was playing. But anyway, yeah, okay, he's very aggressive, but he's always been a more fun, aggressive player than anyone else, in my opinion. And that is total bias, because we cast him so much, and we've met him in real life, and he's really good looking. But it's also just, I think that he has the style that can be really fun.
Game resumed.
There we go. And it might be the same thing over and over again, but Bly also does have like a bunch of different all-ins and cheeses that he can do, so it's variety most of the time. But he does seem to be preferring this proxy hatch lately, and he's gonna try at least a second game in a row. And this time it's on a map that he chose, so it might be able to work out better. But let's actually wait and see. So the drones are coming over, and remember that I mentioned that generally it seems to be spine crawlers versus Protoss and Roach Router versus Terran. Well, this is actually getting switched up. It's not going to be Spinecrawler Rush against a Terran, and this is going to be quite entertaining to watch. So as I said, the Reaper, yeah, okay, actually, look at this. You don't even need the Reaper to pop out before the creep sees, you see the creep, so he's like, oh, wait a second. I'm surprised it took him that long to realize that he was probably, you know, hotkeying his camera locations and macroing, so it was a bit funny. He needed the Reaper to go down the ramp. But the Spinecrawlers are almost already done. You know, I think with Protoss, depending on the Protoss's build, you can actually try and probes around and get Mothership Core over here to kill maybe 1 or 2 of the Spinecrawlers. Although that's also on a larger map. I don't know, the fact that it's Dash on Station is very funny. It's it's so close to your base, so it should be like immediately scouted, but since it is so close to your base, the attack hits so much faster and harder as well, you know? And so far it's not working out badly for Bly at all. ByuN, I'm not sure what he could have done better. I mean, he probably could have held on to the bunker a little bit longer if he had pulled more SCVs to repair, but I think he realized that the bunker positioning was just going to be problematic in general. So tries to build one behind it, but a little late on that. Reaper control has to be totally on point. That's the one thing that's going to survive the longest against the Lings. The Marines can only help out so much. And unfortunately, as Spine Crawlers are able to root on the high ground, which I would say is the hardest thing to do for this. You know, if you keep them on the low ground, especially when you have an in-base expansion, then that's not so much of a problem. Eventually you get the tanks and medevacs and you can hold on for much longer, but to already have the Spine Crawlers almost in your mineral line is a problem, and I think Bly might have just done it with this build. Now a lot of his Lings are going down, the Marines are still being pumped out, although one at a time, which is not exactly ideal, but the Spine Crawlers completely deny mining in the main base. They all go to the natural, at the very least, and while this isn't over yet, it has certainly turned wonky. I think Bly might have it. It's, you know, I think he has it, especially if he can stop these two barracks from coming up. Because ByuN still does have some pretty decent mining, 17 workers and double mules. Eventually he'll have to lift the space, though. But if he's only producing one Marine at a time, does it really matter? Because, you know, Bly's still producing all these Lings, even if his queens aren't larva injecting. Yeah, not larva injecting. So either canceling the barracks or just getting on top of the production. I guess both really work here, as ByuN realizes, like, oh shit, like, I actually need to protect my production. This is a situation where I think a lot of this game came down to positioning. The bunker starts farther back, you know, stops the Spine Crawlers from moving forward as opposed to getting killed by the Spine Crawlers. The barracks are built back here. That's at least 2 barracks constantly producing, as opposed to the 1 and then 0. These bunkers look a little silly. They are going to try and do what the other bunkers could not and stop the advancement of Spine Crawlers, but this is also a case where there's a lot more Lings. So I'm not sure how it quite works out. The Spine Crawler moves forward with the help of the Queen taking a bit of the shots too. Transfuses are available, so they can either go on the Queen or the Spine Crawler. Lings get a full surround, and you realize there's more SCVs necessary to be pulled into this. So the Marines go down from the first bunker. The auto repair actually stops for a second, and that's it. Bly takes the second game and makes it a 1-1. Cheese works. But, as I said in the first game, can cheese work 2 times? 3 times? 4 times? I don't think so. That was also a very particular map to do something like that. So, as stated before, about every 2 games we're going to have a 2-minute break, so let's go right into it. So just missing the making of the lobby, so not much action being missed at all. Thanks for watching the TING semifinals, and of course check out btv.ting.com if you want to learn more and you do live in the US. Thanks for watching those ads. I was a little worried, and then I realized it's Frost, so I didn't mess that up. But you only missed the beginning of the games, and no cheese actually happened. Phew! And it is Frost. And this is the 3rd game, if you're just tuning in. And it is, yeah, the score is not incorrect. It is tied 1-1. In the top right, as the red Terran, he is ByuN. He just lost to some super cheese with Spine Crawler Rush. In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, he is Bly on his very old account name. So yeah, Frost being the 3rd map, this was back to ByuN's choice. If you haven't quite, you know, understood yet how the choices worked, ByuN is the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th. Well, not 7th. 7th was, I guess, just whatever was left over, but now you understand. But this is better, of course. Bly, he tried the cheese in the first game, King Sejong, because it was also a 2-player map, and you could try it. Not exactly the greatest map for it, but you could try it. Dasan Station, a little bit more viable for really weird stuff, which Bly is usually the master of. And ByuN just, as I said in the game, I think had more positional issues than anything else. You know, yeah, faster scouting could have mentally prepared him. You know, maybe a different build could have helped too, as opposed to a second barracks, a faster factory, like who really knows, but I think more down to positioning. But he doesn't have to worry about that type of stuff on Frost. You know, Bly, even if he gets the correct... Oh my good god. So even if he gets the correct scout, which he actually... No, was that the second or... That was the second Overlord. Well, either way, like, you can't send a drone over there too and hope to god it was the correct scout. Like, that would just be too dangerous. But that is a pretty big deal. Funny thing is, though... Typically, ByuN... I don't want to say typically. It does feel like... We've cast a lot of ByuN games. I feel like 3 out of 10 games or something like that, ByuN does lose their Reaper. It's actually a higher rate than I think any other... Oh, I didn't lift the thingamajigger! It's a higher rate than any other Terran player, but it's always a question of does it matter? Because if Zergs are generally going to be the more defensive player, in this matchup, you know, we have a lot of Zergs that love to go for that very quick Ultralisk playstyle, which is very defensive initially. Then does it matter your Reaper didn't scout the fact that they got Roach War in a certain time? Not so much. But against a player like Bly, who would kill a Reaper and then change his plans, or just initially have a more aggressive plan, I think that's much more important. And ByuN should be very scared of what he's not scouting. Because honestly, even in these positions, it could be a Roach Rush, it could be a Nidus Swarm after this layer. It could be a 2-base Spire, which isn't exactly the most common build, but something that Bly has been experimenting more with, I feel, than any other European Zerg, especially European Zerg. So it could be complicated. Now, if ByuN had scouted the 2-base layer, the timing of his build, and this is the ByuN build, if you don't know, he loves this build. He does it almost every single game. The timing's a little bit wonky, you know. I do believe we've seen it before, where if everything lines up and it's not the greediest 2-base spy I've ever seen, the drop can happen as the mutas come out, and if you drop the 16 Marines with Stim and Medivacs, then they'll be okay against Mutalisk, right? They'll actually take a decent trade, maybe even slaughter the Zerg entirely if they don't respond absolutely correctly. If you wait just a little bit longer, or it is a bit greedier of a 2-base muta build, the timing doesn't work out quite as well, and you do have to be very careful about not getting your Medivacs sniped as they are moving across the map. Because that's where Mutalisk look really good, is when they can chase down the Medivacs before all the Marines are unloaded. But the mutas are only on the way out. ByuN did scan to see a Spire on the way, but he knew that the timing would still be in his favor, so he's going to try and take an engagement. Lings, Queens, and good control on the mutas can take care of this. This is not an automatic build order win, but I do think it's something that ByuN could stick around for a little bit longer than something else. You know, if Banelings are around, for instance, and he can't snipe them in time, immediately pick up and you run away. Here, you don't have the pickup option, which is kind of the downside, but you do have the direct engagement option, which is exactly what ByuN chooses to do. He set steps away from the Lings. The Queens initially weren't helping too much, and then the mutas started to get focus fired, so ByuN will lose one of those Medivacs, but he took a good chunk of army away with him and got away with at least one of the Medivacs too. So this is kind of like, this is the ideal situation, I feel, for these build order crossovers. And in your own play, it might not look nearly as good. Whether you're the Zerg or the Terran, you might lose automatically if you're a lesser Zerg player, or you might lose you're both drew dropped if you're a lesser Terran player. It's very, like, specific stuff here, but it's over and done with. It didn't really cause that many issues in the grand scheme of things for either player. The mutas are just an opener here for Bly. Looks like he's not going to be going into Mutaling Bling, which is definitely an option, but usually less so for Europeans. They do still like their roaches a lot, and Bly does have both styles that he can do. He can definitely play with roaches. He can also try Mutaling Bling, but as we can see in the production tab, moving back into those roaches. ByuN, you know, very quickly got Liberators after that scout, you know, and we'll have that easy base defense, so shouldn't have to worry about that. To note also, ByuN went for a faster 3rd CC as opposed to a fast 2-base follow-up, which he does seem to like quite a bit on Frost, especially non-cross position. I think he really likes those 2-base pushes, holding off in the 3rd. But maybe the mutas made him reconsider, because this is a faster 3rd base, yet with a single engineering bay as opposed to a double engineering bay. And usually you go like to one extreme or another. The aggression with one upgrade or the third base with both upgrades. Anyway, he's been consistently producing Marines from a decent enough production line that he has enough to be scary. And he is going to try and clear up some creep. But what has he scouted since those mutas? He hasn't seen the roaches. Third base is a given at this point, or should be anyway. But doesn't know about the roaches quite yet. Bly will need Ravagers to help out here, for sure. Thank you, Passive Crimes, for the 25-month resub. I don't think it dinged. Probably happened near the ad break. That's a lot of Liberators. That means there's no medevac, so every sim really hurts, and surprisingly, the sustained damage from roaches will actually be good against this army. So ByuN realizes, like, oh shit, like, there's no focus firing on Banelings here. Like, I'd actually be very careful, especially if the Corrosive Biles come down. That's also where his Liberator control is a little bit questionable, but always starts focus firing the Corrosive, or the Ravagers, the Corrosive Bile makers, you know, whatever. Oh, right into the mutas. Oh, that was actually really well done by Bly. That was a really great defense. Only thing I could have done better would be to save those Ravagers. But anyways, if the Liberators had taken a direct engagement as well, had they sieged up or tried to take on the mutas, Corrosive Biles. It was a very good defense from Bly. Now, as noted, ByuN, he got this third CC, but he's actually waiting quite a bit to take it on location. The Liberator should have been like this easy anti-muta defense, but after seeing the roach, I think you gotta be a little bit hesitant. Like, oh god, is he gonna go like, you know, mass roaches and just attack into me, especially after I lost my army? Or is he gonna be a little more reserved and go for a fourth base and an infestation pit? Bly can do both, which I think is really scary. He can go for fast hive, he can also go for, you know, a lot of aggression. So that's a lot of roaches, and ByuN is not at a great army supply. His Liberators don't have any Corrosive Biles to worry about, so they should be sieging up, but oh dear god, don't let the roaches in. Yeah, we're good though. They're good. And the mutas really shouldn't be remade, so once they're all out, and they're almost all dead, Liberator siege mode, liberation mode, should be the go-to, but then Bly should also realize that Corrosive Biles will be necessary here. Third base was denied for a very long time. Like, consider how early he actually finished the third CC, and then how long it took him to comfortably put it on location, plus all the denial here. That's a 10-minute third CC. So he's got to transfer a lot of SCBs, and ideally, you know, I think at a perfect game, he's already thinking towards a fourth base. Not so in this game. Not unless he starts playing very, very turtily. The Tunneling Claws is definitely a more aggressive upgrade to get than the Infestation Pit and Hive combo, obviously, but it is one that has been doing quite well against Terran defenses. So I think it's really great against someone that has gone for a lot of tanks, because they realize very quickly what you're doing, so you can burrow underneath and pop up. Against Liberators, I don't think there's quite the same dynamic. Bly is taking an engagement here. There are a couple of tanks helping out. He actually moves into the Liberators before taking them out, and I don't think that was a great idea. I think it looked tempting because it was mostly Marines, you know, not a lot of Marauders and not a lot of tanks, but that was still questionable. Not being able to take out the Liberators first certainly added a lot of damage to the Roach Force, but he takes out the rest of the Liberators because they're all clumped up. That really sucks for ByuN. Now, ByuN right now, he's holding okay. And actually a drop goes down here, kills about 9 workers. That's actually pretty good. And he is the one that kind of like time should technically be on his side because upgraded bio with medevacs just gets so good after a while. Especially when the upgrades finish. But it's also this really scary position right now where he's not quite at that perfect army. He just lost his Liberators. He's not at the upgrades quite yet. And Bly did have a big, not remax, but he did build a lot of his army back up pretty quickly. But ByuN is he's clearing up creep now. That was actually getting pretty far out there. He's gonna be very careful not losing units here. He can always pick up with the medevacs, which is why I think clearing up creep was not that much of a problem for him, but leaving his tanks alone could have been. Love the missile turret, by the way. I just went over how Tunneling Claws seems to be doing pretty well. Single missile turret on the front lines takes care of that issue. And there is a visual representation of Tumbling Claws, so you should recognize that's always going to be a potential problem. Roach is actually trying to get in here, but nicely done by ByuN to recognize it and lift his supply depots. Attack goes over on the north side, though, and the missile starts taken out, so Burrow could be used to maybe retreat. The Bly's going to try and force the issue, unfortunately losing a lot of his frontline Roaches. That means the Ravagers fall very quickly behind this. The upgrades are done for ByuN, and that puts his bio in a very good position, especially as he starts to get a bigger medevac count, which again has been sacrificed for what has been quite a few Liberators. Well, some SCVs went down, a lot of drones have gone down. In fact, so many damn drones. 19, 20 drones, and Bly had already lost a few to the initial drop. I think ByuN has effectively brought this back from what was looking to be a fairly scary position, and is now winning this game straight up. Unfortunately, Bly realizes that maybe a bit too late. I think 1.5 attacks too late, basically, and is trying to get to a hive now, but just as ByuN is getting confident and pushing. Ooh, that was a good attempt. Hindsight, always 2020. Bly might be like, oh shit, like, next game this happens, I probably should go for a faster hive after taking that one good engagement. That they're killing the Liberators, for instance, but this game he just went for more Roaches and more Roaches, and it unfortunately did not work out. So this is the main command center lifted, so not exactly the most ideal economic position for ByuN, but it's not that bad either, as he just killed 20 drones. Infestors do bring back this possibility of Bly for a macro game, as of course Fungal Corrosive Bile is a very powerful combo, but no Pathogen Gland, so he's got to wait for the Infestors' energy, and ByuN has been pretty good in the past about dealing with Corrosive Biles and Fungals. He still focus fires with his tanks. He splits pretty well, as we all know. He's a pretty good Terran, I don't know what to tell you. I do like the harassment attempts here, but they are being denied on almost every turn. Missile turret's up again. Can pretty quickly replace that. And everything's looking pretty good for ByuN. 3-3's on the way. It took a while to get there, but eventually came to it. Bly very slowly catching up on upgrades. Very, very slowly with only one upgrade at a time. This is clever. Not quite getting to it yet. No, just put them up on the high ground. Well, there's nothing to kill these anyways. Okay, that's fine then. No! Okay, the 3 still live. But that could have been at least a couple of SCVs, plus the escape of the Roaches. And another drop hits this third base. Luckily, Bly was a little more prepared for it. He does try and get the harassment done, but the Marines are chased anyway. So not much to be done there. His Infestors now have energy, and this makes it a lot scarier for ByuN to push through this choke. In fact, I would say reconsider. But for what the Fungals can do... oh, the Focus Fire and the Infestors... not quite there. A lot of the tanks actually weren't firing to begin with, but... while the choke was scary for Fungals, an open wide position was also scary for the tanks. So it was kind of like choose your battle wisely, and I think ByuN did choose his battle pretty wisely. Infested Terrans can only help us so much, and ByuN has definitely got this. Small counterattack yet again tried out here. The single Cyclone definitely feels like a mistake, but it's helped a little bit. Oh, bye. Sweet dreams. The base goes down. Tank's still alive. Reinforcements aplenty for ByuN. Oh, poor Bly, only just getting his +2 missile upgrade. The hive is about to be finished, and he could try and go for a greater spire. Because for once, Zerg has a spire, but... I don't think he has the time to get to Corruptors, Greater Spire, and Broodlords. GG. ByuN takes it 2-1, but I gotta tell you, that was not a dominant game for ByuN. It looked a little bit like domination if you only just tuned in for the last 4 minutes, but there is certainly 1 or 2 attacks where it's like, oh shit, does ByuN lose this? Does he get overpowered and kind of snowballed here? And the answer was no, but it could have happened, or, you know, more importantly, and probably a better idea, does he get out macroed? Not in like the skill sense, but just like he gets beat to the late game, and then the late game beats him. He's actually one of the better Terrans when it comes to late game, so it's not like Ultras would be an Ultra, like, GG, get out of this game, bro. But he would have potentially been so far behind because of the Liberators he lost that late game tech would have been quite good. We'll never know. Next map goes back to Bly's choice, but of course at this point they're kind of running out of like, oh, this map I always win on, you know? And it's going to be New Gettysburg. New Getty. Invite ByuN, invite Bly. Caster doesn't know the meta. Yeah, you're right. I only cast like almost every single day and watch StarCraft all the time. Shut the fuck up, I swear to God. The biggest problem of calling games like these is that Bly is a real wild card. So it makes a lot of sense that I think he came from the wild card group. I think. And that ByuN has, for a very long period of time, been the only Terran to do something outside of Korean tournaments. He was the first one to really show that Terrans could be even dominant in this matchup, and so far he has been very dominant. Apparently Bly has to restart his PC. And Snoot's informing me, because Snoot's sitting next to him. So we'll just wait a bit. Is the entire bracket gonna be played out today? I assume you mean like the semifinal or the finals, the best of 3 third place match. No, those are both going to be kept for tomorrow. Same start time, but best of 3 into a best of 9, which is quite a big leap. But that's the thing we attempted in the first season, was to see how best of 5s quicker, as well as best of 7s in the semifinals would look. And it was met pretty positively by most of the players, but also a lot of the fans. And as seen from a lot of the current tournaments, it was kind of... the semifinals and finals weren't adopted, but the best of 5 a lot quicker, like in group stages, I think was adopted a lot because maybe we set the tournament meta, but also because everyone realized that Legacy of the Void matches were going a bit quicker. New Gettysburg is a map for Bly to hatchery rush on. He did it versus Neeb, and he can certainly do it again versus ByuN. Thank you, Baba Convolute, for the 30-month resub. Damn. Hashtag AceKates for Rifkin. Thanks to Ian Chan, 2003, for the 20-month resub. Your natural hair color is beautiful, you should keep it like that. Well, not that I was asking for your opinion, but... I think my natural hair color is fine, but I also think blonde is fine. So Bly's back, and hopefully everything is fixed for good now. And Bly is ready. Alright, map number 4. Not yet the last map. Why has this been asked as a question recently? This is like the 3rd time I've been asked. Do you support the LGBTQ plus community? And it's like, what answer are you expecting? Whatever. let's get into this next game. So, by this time, the last semifinal, it was already match points. This time, not so much. ByuN making a series of it for sure. In the bottom right, I knew it was the bottom right. Don't question me. It is the blue Terran ByuN. And on the bottom left, as the red Zerg, he is Bly. Thank you, Spirinal, for the 24-month resub. I didn't say anything, but thank you for the resub. So the winner of the semifinal will go on to face Solar tomorrow in a best of 9, so a very long series indeed. The loser of this best of 7 will go on to face Patience in a best of 3 for that 3rd, 4th place match, which is the only difference of $200. But it's a nice little, like, besides, I think, you know, the difference of prizing for 3rd, 4th place match, it's always nice to have a little bit of a warm-up, you know, for what is going to be this really potentially epic grand finals. Maybe TvZ, maybe ZvZ. I think everyone feels it more for ByuN, and you wouldn't be wrong with his win record and just, I mean, versus Zerg in general, right? But all his overall play as well. But Bly, you know, he's got the strong cheese, which he's not doing again here, by the way. I actually was kind of expecting it, but nope, not so much. He has a strong cheese he can do on certain maps, and he also showcased a perfectly fine macro game last game, and had 1 or 2 points where it was like, oh shit, can he snowball off of this? And unfortunately he didn't, and ByuN took it, but it just goes to show this is actually a series, not just a stomp. Thanks to Funli for the 22-month resub. They should play one map on Big Game Hunters. Totally agree. That would be the most balanced way to play. It's absolutely true. I guess we are reaching like the 4,000 viewer mark, which is great and awesome, by the way. Thanks so much for tuning in. But then comes the crappy chat. I do recall this. Astro Archer, thank you for the 6-month resub. Are you going to do another contest donation thing for your next hair color? No, not so much. As fun as it was, I don't think so. What do we have? It does seem to be the typical ByuN build. He does this almost every single game. The only reason he didn't do it the first 2 games is because Bly stopped him from doing it by going for hatchery proxies. I think that was his plan there too. The question seems to always be, with any matchup, including Bly, what does Bly do? First and foremost, he doesn't go for a proxy hatchery, great, but then what else does he have planned for this? This was his map choice as opposed to the last 2 maps available, so it was still something that he preferred to play on over the others, and usually when Bly prefers to play on a map, it's because he has something specific in mind. You know, a lot of other, I think, players, they choose a map because they're comfortable and they can do a lot of things on the map, they can have variety. But then there are some players that just, you know, they have that build that is, like, so good, and that's why they have a good win percentage, and blah, 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 and that's a player I would think of more as Bly as, but that last game was macro game, and it turned out fine. I do still wonder if the 2-base Spire was because he killed a Reaper, or he wanted to do it anyways. As I said in the game, he has done 2-base Spire before, without killing a Reaper, you know, letting it get scouted, but that was kind of like very, very nice of him to keep ByuN in the dark for so long. Here, the Reaper does not die. ByuN actually, you know, does save it. There's not much for him to scout, but still having the idea that they're going for a macro game, that they're still on Lings, you know, is enough. And it's always better to have more information. So, right, I guess people weren't here initially. Bly is in China. He was participating in the NSL. I think he's out right now, but since he is in China, he's able to play on the Korean server without much of a problem. And we don't have to swap between EU Korea or, you know, that middle-of-the-road North American one, which ByuN was very happy about. Reaper does die to Queens. A little unfortunate, but it kind of already did its job anyway. We do have Dumb Engineering base at the front, so ByuN is going to be going for more of the macro follow-up. Last game was very odd, because it was kind of like really middle of the road, and it looked more because of the way things had gone, as opposed to what he intended to do. But this, I think, is most of his games, is the 3rd base to Engineering base follow-up, as opposed to the tank push that we typically see from Frost, specifically, which is already out of the map pool. Thanks to Klondike7 for the 6-month resub. Woot! Double drops, try and go to the main base. That's like... Doing this is one of those, like, man, I really hope I get an easy win because I kill so many lings and so many drones. It's just really easy after that, but it's not something that is supposed to happen, I would say. The Zerg player should have overlords scouting this. They should have an idea of what ByuN specifically is going to do, which is always these medevac drops, and they should not let the freebies get by, because that's, of course, when ByuN really starts to snowball. But this is only a Ling Queen defense, and while that's fine, it really does have to be controlled quite well. And on creep, I think that was a given. The Lings would definitely be able to surround the Marines, the Queens would definitely be able to focus fire the medevac, and that worked out really well for Bly there. But ByuN has never been about the first 2 medevacs, really. If he gets a free win, he gets a free win, that's great. But generally, if it's going to be more of a macro game, as this is turning out to be, it's about the second group of medevacs. 3rd, 4th medevacs, 5th, 6th. Etc., etc. Did have a bit of a drop in the main base. The Widowmine drop killed about 5 drones, and a queen went down, so that was nice. This is 3rd medevac. He does almost lose it, though, so... And New Gettysburg be New Gettysburg, am I right? This little... Oh, God. So you can't really use it that much anymore. I was going to be very careful with it, but ideally this is what you're doing. You're attacking the main or the creep while attacking the 3rd or the creep with this drop over here. That's the general tactic to get you a lot of control over the game. Now, Bly did push off his Spire for quite some time to get faster upgrades, and had he started his 2-2 immediately, he would have maybe like a 30-second lead in upgrades versus ByuN. Unfortunately, a little bit delayed on that just because, you know, lack of gas here as he does get Spire down and Baneling speed. Still not any Banelings, though, which he doesn't necessarily need, but then he takes a fight off of Creep, which the stutter step of ByuN looks pretty broken when you do that. Gotta be careful. A 3rd base now being taken. Looks like ByuN... Okay, Bly might have still had an upgrade lead, even with his delay on his own upgrades, because ByuN also delayed his for the tiniest little bit, but starts him up now, and they're gonna be pretty close, especially if Bly doesn't bother getting +2 melee. Some cancels go down on the Banelings, but that is too many Banelings to focus fire. So it does have to get out of there. Still pretty well timed. Look at this creep spread, by the way. This is some pretty damn good creep spread. It feels like Legacy of the Void creep spread has really been reduced in general, less importance put on it, and then of course there was the whole argument against, like, is it really that helpful for Roach Ravager? Creep spread is always helpful, but it's definitely, like, for Banelings, it's a lot more helpful. But this is pretty good. It's missing from the north. It's the middle is definitely taken care of. And as long as the queen survived, then you should be able to replant it back down. By the way, we had a Spire, like, that wasn't cancelled, but no mutas in production. He did have to build quite a few Banelings, and maybe he was like, you know, do I really need mutas right now? Maybe I should just focus on the ground defense a little bit, but I don't know. You know, not a lot has really happened in this game, but it looks like Bly, just by having to deal with so much, has slipped a little bit on the macro. Of course, now he's building minerals and gas because he wants to build Mutalisk, but, you know, I feel like with how good he's been defending against the drops for the most part, I feel like other Zergs might have already been at like 70 drones, you know, and a 4th base already done, which he was still a little slow to get to. So that supply difference is quite large for not having taken that much damage. Detect the income. Okay, income's back and forth, but it's not desperate situations yet, just like a little bit of maybe Bly could have had a bit more greed earlier on. Really something you could argue, though, all damn day long. And 30-20 army supply difference when you're going Mutilating Bling can sometimes not be the biggest deal. A little bit of a run by here, as you do have that creep to fall back on. You do have potential really good Baneling hits to fall back on, and you do have the Terran player sometimes really scared to push up and be aggressive, even if they are with this huge supply lead. That usually is overcome, and it really is about surviving this mid-game right now for Mutilating Bling. This is the point where, you know, they aren't rolling in cash quite yet. They don't have a lot of larva, but the macro hatcheries are starting to get up, the extra bases are starting to get up, and their muta count's also starting to get up too. And once they get to, like, I feel like they go over that hump of, like, 160 supply, Mutilating Bling looks as good as it did in Heart of the Swarm, and it was a good composition. You know, none of the numbers have changed the actual units. But it is about getting over that hump. But, Bly looks like he's doing a fine job of it. A lot of the creep spread was cleaned up with ByuN's pressure here, but then was planted back down because he's keeping the queens alive, which is very important. ByuN's not relying, though. You know, I'm talking a lot about Bly. ByuN's not fully relying on winning the game very quickly because he doesn't have to. He has a very good late game in TvZ, so he's got a 4th base on the way. He's got 3-3, and he still has this really big supply lead. And Bly, this is one place he was not having a lot of creep spread on. If he had creep spread, oh, those baneling hits would have been beautiful. He does manage to clean almost everything up just without the creep spread going too far forward, but not quite enough. Like, if he had what he was banking, basically, because he was banking about 600, 400, I want to say, maybe even more in the gas, he probably cleans that up entirely, saves his base, and starts to put the creep back down. But because he was missing those 60 extra lings that he only just made, ByuN was able to kill that. Now, a 5th base was already established, so just transfer the drones, and now he's at 71 drones. That's pretty good. But that was certainly something, momentum-wise, that was very good for ByuN, but also just trade-wise was very good. He's also clearing up the middle creep again, too, and once this creep is gone, that's when things are really very dangerous for Bly. Bly did try and go up to a hive, which he has, and he's trying to go to ultras, but I don't think he was quite safe enough to do this yet. This is feeling a bit like a Hail Mary. Like, you're not quite in the comfortable position. You're not quite dead yet either, but probably could have waited a bit longer to do so. Because the problem is, you know, in your own games, whatever your rank is, or maybe versus a couple of other European Terrans, you get to ultras, they have a lot of trouble. ByuN doesn't. You have to actually still be playing a very good late game versus ByuN if you hope to win, even with ultras. And things get so awkward to those banelings. Oh my god. GG. I mean, he was at a bad army supply to begin with, but then those banelings wanted to take on the Marines, but then they were too far back, so they kind of rolled around the Marauders for some time. That was awkward. Was the best word for it. But that puts ByuN on 1 win away from winning the entire series and moving on to the finals, so maybe Bly can bring it back. The next map is going to be Frozen Temple, then Apotheosis and Galactic Process, should we get to all 7 maps. But before we get into Frozen Temple, you're just missing the lobby creation. Nothing too exciting. We're going to go to a quick break. Again, reminder, this is all sponsored by TING, so go to bettv.ting.com if you're interested in mobile phone service in the US specifically. If you're looking to move over to someone who doesn't charge you nearly as much with data that you don't use, if you're on Wi-Fi a lot more, then definitely TING could be the plan for you. But stay tuned, we'll be back with game. Thanks for watching those ads. You're back and about ready to get into it. Just need Bly to stay ready. Alrighty. Alright, Frozen Temple, potentially last map of the series. Bly has 1 win in his pocket. Almost arguably had 2 with the Roach game on Frost, but wasn't quite able to get over the hump that was ByuN's defenses. Thanks to SharkDog58 for the 7-month resub, and SE2 Faris for the 14-month resub. Let's get into it. Let's get the correct score up as well. There we go. In the bottom right, as the blue Terran, he is ByuN. In the top left, as the red Zerg, he is Bly. And if it wasn't against ByuN, I'd actually be quite, like, hopeful for Bly to bring all of this back. Yeah, the 1 win was from a Spinecrawler rush, so I'm sure a lot of people in chat are going to be like, oh, he can only win if he cheeses, but I've been really impressed lately with Bly. So he had, I think, definitely a time where he was just, like, slumping really hard. He wasn't doing so hot in online cups, and he was getting just rolled whenever we would cast him. You know, I know I'm being very harsh when I say that, but it was true. And I was like, oh, damn, he's having a really bad couple of weeks. And then he really brought it back hard against Neve. That's how he got to the semifinals. And honestly, these last two macro games against ByuN have looked quite good. It's just that it's ByuN, who's a TvZ god, and to expect much more is going to, you know, provide, like, you're gonna have to provide, like, almost perfect play, which Bly's definitely providing some good play, really great play, but not quite there. I do like the double Reaper, actually triple racks on Frozen Temple, as ByuN especially is very good at using this as a jumping off point. You can win with this straight up if they defend badly. You can also macro out of it if you control it perfect, which I do believe ByuN has the ability to do so. And Bly, unfortunately, is gonna have to deal with his own, you know, cheese. This should be like revenge for the first two games. He's gonna see it soon enough. The Overlord would see the multiple barracks anyway, but it would have seen the second Reaper come out. But it is nice to know right off the bat that it's 3 racks Reaper instead of just 2. And the defense has to start right now, basically. If you can get the first Reaper down and out, you've already helped yourself so much, but to do so is usually because the Terran messed up, not because you're super good, which is very unfortunate for the Zerg side of things. And we all know that ByuN has lost quite a few first Reapers before. Not this time, though. It's being buddied up now, and more Reapers are on the way. And now the question is, how does Bly defend against this? So we have seen a couple situations where Ling Floods get the surround on the Reapers and they mess up their grenades or they're too far away from a ledge, and Ling Floods do push this back. And that's great if that happens, but the actual counter to this is Ravager range, basically. And that you get a couple of Ravagers and ideally they kind of push off the Reapers and force them outside of your base, and that can lead to a macro game. Even that, though, can be tricky because it does seem that in the hands of a good 3 racks player, even if you push these Reapers away, whether that's through a lot of Lings, Roaches, or Ravagers, or Spineclaws, like whatever, they still have this really decent macro behind it. So we already have 1 command center on the way. Wouldn't surprise me if ByuN was putting down a 3rd one. In fact, he's banking enough minerals to do so. And the problem for Bly is that, you know, even if he scouts it, like, hell, if it's, like, on location, which would be very, very greedy and ByuN's not gonna do, even if it was, there's not much he can do about it. Unless he takes care of the Reapers first, which, ByuN at this point, you know, he might actually get the hatchery. That would be really bad, but, he's realized that he doesn't really, I think, have to go up into the main base anymore and get direct drone damage done, because he's getting so much drone damage done by forcing Bly to make so many units. He's already ahead in workers by quite a bit when you consider he's about to have triple mule here. And Bly, I think, was a little too late to the Roach reaction. And even if the Reapers go away, and he doesn't chase them, because you really can't, and he just tries to macro, get a 3rd base, get a lot of drones. Oh, those supply blocked right now. Oof, that sucks. ByuN's perfectly fine with that, I think. He is on his way to solid marine production. He's getting his factory up. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing you give up when you go for 3 racks Reaper is your tech. But the 3rd CC, even if it's not planted on the low ground, will be able to produce 3 SCVs at a time. And ByuN just looks already pretty good. The fast 2-base lair, oof, I wonder what this is for. He does have the Roach Horn. He didn't cancel it or anything once the Reapers left. So this could be for... oh. Never mind. I was thinking maybe a Nidus Worm, but the Nidus Worm problem is that it really has to hit at this time where production hasn't kicked in yet, as far as marine production, and I think that time's already gone. By the time a Nidus Worm would be done and ready to go when the Roaches are out, there'd be quite a lot of Marines, and the Reaper's still alive with their grenades down, so the Nidus Worm wouldn't have worked, but it was a possibility. Spire is also possible, but no, it's just going to be, you know, double upgrades, you know, unfortunately with no 3rd base against someone who already has a 3rd base. And it's looking grim. It's looking very grim for a Zerg player. It is, I guess, worth noting really quickly that ByuN has not relied on 3x Reaper for some time, I feel. We cast him on a lot of European Cups, and he plays in a lot of foreign tournaments. And once upon a time, he was definitely doing 2-Rax or 3-Rax Reaper almost every single game on Frozen Temple, and then he really, it just was a build that he could do a couple of times, not something that he relies on necessarily. So people might be saying, like, why didn't Bly just try and, like, automatically hard counter something like this? Because you do see some people go for, like, even a Roach Warren being built, and then once they realize it's not multiple Reapers, they cancel the Roach Warren. It's a pretty extreme reaction, but it does happen. That wasn't a guaranteed build from ByuN. So, unfortunately, it is a strong build, and ByuN did what he wanted with it, and Bly, as fast as he scouted it, as much as he tried to react well against it, still finds himself in a bad position. Now, I guess he has some time before ByuN has his upgrades all completed up. I'm not sure if ByuN's going to try and attack without those upgrades initially, because he does have still a pretty good army even without upgrades, especially with the Reaper Grenades, but whether he attacks now or waits for his upgrades patiently, either way, he's looking pretty good. It's kind of funny to see Reapers being the defensive force, but they do help against these Ling Run bias. They would also help a lot with the main push. Grenades with Roaches just scatter them so far apart from each other that the Marines start, like, sniping them one at a time. They don't even get damage done because they're too busy, like, flailing in the air if the grenades are there. And here come the grenades right now. I said, like, without the grenades, I think that ByuN or Bly holds, but it looks like he'll hold anyway. Just enough here to hold, but it does make it a lot more questionable for that hold. A good Ling run by happened as those Reapers came to reinforce the front lines. That's 11 SCVs gone, plus the 3rd CC. Not mining. That is a good start to bringing Bly back into this game. But Bly is still only on 3 bases and only 44 drones. Just now getting his drones back up. Of course, 4th base is probably a little farther away than he would like. And the 3rd base is cleaned up, and SCVs do go back to it. So, I don't know. Upgrades are even, but only for some time. Bly is going to go ahead and go for a really quick infestation pit, which I think is probably the better maneuver. I do want to note, like, a really quite good game where similar situations happened. I don't remember the Terran player. It might have been ByuN. I actually don't recall. But Snoots had a similar opener as Bly did, which means he wasn't in a great position, and he probably should have died to the immediate follow-up, but he held on so long with Roaches and Ravagers, and eventually Roach, Ravager, and Fester that he almost brought that game back against a very good Terran. It's probably Euthermal, right? If you had to take a guess, that's probably a good guess. But, that was a pretty extreme case of how good Corrosive Bile Infestors can be. It's not the automatic comeback that I think Bly would be wishing for. But he's halted ByuN's aggression for some time now after pushing back the first attack. He's finally clearing up these Reapers, which have been alive for way too long. And he is getting those Infestors. He's going to go ahead and try and fit in +2 Carapace along with some Infestors. Hold off on the +2 attack for now. I got Liberators coming out for ByuN, as well as a tank every now and then. He is upgrading his tanks, so I'm surprised he's prioritizing Liberators for now. But a drop goes on to the right side, kills the creep-spreading Queen, as well as the creep itself, and we'll get a cancel on this 4th base. Cancelled just in time. Liberator sieges up to harass, but doesn't get too much down, maybe a drone. Drop in the main base is going to force all of the units back, while a Liberator goes into the... Okay, I thought I was going to go to the natural, but apparently the main base too. Oh, he realizes. Roach's filtering it one at a time was a bit okay for ByuN for a time, but does pick up and leave. Another Liberator right in that 3rd base. This is just getting silly. I mean, he's putting so many Liberators, I thought they were going to be part of the army, but they're all just trying to harass right now. So 2 on the natural, and the Queens that are trying to respond. That's a lot of denied mining right now. Drop goes back into the main base, and Bly is just having a lot of trouble macroing at this point. Is his main problem. He's doing an okay job defending. 9 drones have gone down, though, and the 4th base still isn't quite established. Ooh, it was close. But his macro is hardcore, slipping 1,500, 1,000. That could have easily been enough Roaches to clean this up, and instead he barely doesn't clean it up. The upgrades have finished for ByuN, so of course he's taking much better engagements now too. +2 Kerberos only finishing just now for Bly, and the 4th base was not cancelled, it was killed. More drones went down while this was all going down, and the infestors are now out of energy. Meanwhile, ByuN has just been macroing back at home. It's still very grim for Bly. Big thanks to, let's see here. Oh god. No, I shouted that out. So Dano Tori is a new sub, thank you so much. And Oli Moly for the 23-month resub. Thank you both. Hive is on the way. But of course, at this point, even if ultras were reached, it wouldn't be that many ultras. He did use his bank, getting his 4th base back up, his hive, as well as, you know, replacing his army. So that huge bank is now gone, and it would be like, you know, a couple of ultras at a time. And as I've stated before, we haven't seen it yet in this best of 7, but we have seen ByuN against ultras in other best ofs, and he looks just as fine as he does in any other part of TvZ. He actually does deal with ultras fairly well. So it's not the automatic win if he can get there. Bly still has to really take good engagements. He attacks into this, but the fungals were actually focus fired. The infestors were focus fired by the tanks. That was really quite nice, and even without it, it seems like there's just too much firepower for ByuN. Bly, he put up a hell of a fight these 5 games, but the 3-Rax Reaper on Frozen Temple was an automatic, well, arguably an automatic, not win, but way to get ahead. And I think on maybe any other map, I think Apotheosis, and I forget the other map that was about Galactic Process, you know, both of those, well, Galactic Process can also be Reaper rushed, but I think Apotheosis was the 5th map. I would give a good chance to Bly bringing it back 3-2, but Frozen Temple, I think, was, always going to be an intimidating map at the very least. It's a map where Zergs look at and they're like, oh shit, 3x Reaper. Damn it. Even if they do survive against it. 4th base goes down, but Bly is not going to give up until he gets to an Ultralisk. And then maybe he'll tap out when the Ultralisk dies, because it won't have plating quite yet. 5th base was established, but is going to die to Medevacless drop, run by, whatever you want to call it. Oh my goodness, just really doesn't die. But still not mining, and Bly only on 50 drones. He is mined out, I guess, so he could probably transfer drones. Yeah. But with ByuN taking his 4th base down in this location, he now has a pretty instant reinforcement and defensive line base to base, and this should go down very shortly. Once ByuN is ready. Looks like Medevac's also died up here. Thanks to Electron Hammer for the 12-month resub. I like that face, man. I like the face you're making. Bly is trying to be very conservative with his units right now to get that bank back up so he can, you know, have 6 ultras pop at once and collapse in on ByuN's maybe unexpected army? Unexpecting, I used it right the first time. Army, but of course he has to wait for chitinous plating as well. He'll be back down to 3 bases, though the 4th is trying to be reestablished. And ultras, they can... The thing is, they do survive for so long against Bio, I guess. Not so much against Liberators. That they can be that unit that, because they survive so long, because you don't lose 10 ultras at a time like you do roaches, you do start to accrue a bank that goes back into your economy and static defense. That was more of a thing that happened months ago, though, where if you got to ultras, you could either win with them straight up by, like, just countering and winning, or you could put an ultra on each base and wait for your bad economy to get better. That's kind of a thing of the past, especially against ByuN, who was one of the first, again, you guys to come over to these Foreigner Cups at the very least, and show us that Terran might be really, really good, basically. So I think ultras can maybe buy Bly a bit of time, but not for long. ByuN has already started preparing against them. He's got Liberators, he's got Ghosts on the way already, he's got extra orbitals, Sensor Towers are now up, and he's just good to go against ultras. And these ultras aren't even going to be super well upgraded. They're going to be at 2-0, well, with chitinous plating, of course. But not the 3-3 or the 2-2 even that we can sometimes see with different styles of play. Vipers, interesting choice. Vipers can be very good at abducting Liberators away, which can definitely be helpful. Blinding clouds can also sometimes be helpful, but I think more towards those abducts. A lot more, especially if there's a ton of liberators. But they're not that great at abducting ghosts, which ByuN is more so relying on to dealing with the Ultralisk. Bly does manage to get this base and this base going again, as he starts spanking minerals a bit again. He's only down by 10 supply, and in terms of numbers, Bly doesn't look that bad. In terms of momentum, it has been ByuN's game for some time. The Fungals are here. If the EMPs miss, that could be the start of a great fight. The Ultralisk could chomp down on a lot of these units. The Vipers could abduct all these units. But there come the Fungals. Well, the EMPs don't manage to take care of them. Third base goes down, but that was a third base that was already about mined out, so drones transfer over here. This could be a base that just gets kind of away with itself for a very long time. As even though ByuN built this base, he's still attacking from this side. Drop in the main base does get the infestation pit, I believe. That's pretty big. Ultras were left to take care of it, but just a little bit too late to react. 3-3 is finishing up for ByuN as well, and Bly has really just been halted on his upgrades. There's definitely one thing I think he should have sacrificed in order to get these other things, like infestors, like more ultras, but it is something that's going to affect him long term, is having worse upgraded units. Ultras, great amount of health, great amount of armor, but they can be countered, technically. ByuN still doesn't have the perfect army. We'll throw it out there. He might be overstaying his welcome, too, with this specific army, as Bly realizes, like, hey, there's no ghosts, there's not that many liberators. Abducts try and take care of the liberators, but it gets a little bit awkward. It's not that consistent anti-air. There's not queens here but bursting them down. There's not corruptors. And the corrosive biles were kind of every which way. But ByuN has been banking up the ghost count. Oh my god, back at home he's just been making nothing but ghosts. He's up to 18 ghosts! I mean, I saw a ghost in the production tab, but I just didn't realize that basically everything back at home was ghosts. So that's kind of like, on the minimap, not that big of an army. It was all ghosts. Oh dear god. Now, surprisingly, this is where Lings come back into effect, but, you know, that's usually when the person was going, the Zerg player was going for upgraded Ling style, so 2-2 on the Lings and then the Ultralisk. Whether that was Mutiling Bling, or some people are trying to go like Ling, Bling, Infester, double upgrades. The point is, they help the Ultralisk, but they also help these Ling run-bys later on. That's something that Bly did not go for, obviously. He was going for a lot more Roaches. So even though Lings, I think, would be great in this situation, they're counterattacking over here, they're getting into the production line, they're also canceling Ghost Snipes and killing Ghosts if there's enough Lings. Ghosts actually don't do that badly against Lings, but if you have 100 Lings, they're going to get this around, and it's going to be bad news. All the Snipes go down, and the Fungals were not in time. Fungals also a bit of a counter to those Snipes, but just, oh my god. So many Ultras went down, and there's not much that Bly could have done about it. Oh god, no. That was his army. He was relying mostly on Ultralisk. His base is now being taken down. I mean, he got back up to 2 healthy mining bases. That's impressive. And his army was also impressive until the Snipes went down. He's trying to replace it now, but it's only going to be back to just Ultralisk, basically, which we already know is being countered by Ghost Liberators. This is no good. Ultras coming in one at a time, nothing to support them. GG! ByuN takes the series 4-1, but Bly definitely made it a series. Alright, that's going to be the end of the cast today. Tomorrow is going to be the 3rd place match and the finals. The finals were best of 9. Excuse me, something that is specific to the TING finals. Having a really, really long finals where maps will be replayed if it goes to the 8th and 9th map, which is interesting. Last season, unfortunately, ended with a 5-0, so you didn't get to see that come into effect. But tomorrow's match will be Patience versus Bly in the 3rd place, and ByuN versus Solar in the finals. That is another TvZ for ByuN, so the bets will probably be heavily skewed in ByuN's favor. But Solar looked very strong today, and Solar can look strong versus Terran. I know that there's definitely, I think Armani one of Solar's teammates in one of the past Corsair Cups, actually took on ByuN. You know, he had some decent macro games, and he even won a game, I believe. But that's for something tomorrow to talk about. As we end the cast today, I'll be going into a couple of commercials and then shout-outs, but if you're new, as we do have over 4,000 people watching, so thanks everyone for tuning in. This is all sponsored by TING, which is a mobile phone service company for the United States. If you're mostly on Wi-Fi, not so much on a data plan, then this is probably for you, even if you are the type to use some data. I'm not going between data and data, I know. Then they have reduced recently their rates for that. So that might be something that tempts you and actually gets you over the edge, over the hump to switching to Ting. But check out bttv.ting.com and get $25 credit if you do choose to buy something off their website or swap. But thanks again for watching, and I'll come back later with shoutouts after this quick word from Ting. Whoops. I was paying attention to the wrong screen and confused myself on the timing, so as always, great production here. Thank you for watching, everybody. Of course, main sponsor is going to be Ting, so check out bttv.ting.com if those commercials looked appealing to you, or if what I've talked about for the last 2-3 hours has been appealing to you in the United States. Definitely check it out, but of course, beyond that, thanks to our channel sponsors, G2A.com, use code BASE for 3% off. Cheers for Gaming, use code BASETV for free shipping and free cushions to the United States and Canada. Yord Wood Watches, get $20 off, and also contribute to the next Yord tournament. As you recall, Civil War happened about a month ago, and that was all because people really liked the watches. We sold quite a few, and actually even went over the $1,000 line of a tournament, and just added more to the prize pool, and it was a lot of fun, so know that you're actually contributing to a lot and getting a really cool watch. And finally, Corsair Gaming. We always recommend the headsets as they're wireless and they're quite good. If you scroll down below, you can use our links directly to that, and I know that you came from us, and that'll help us out, but also help yourself out, get some really good gear if you're looking for anything new in that department. Part 2, giveaways for Save Rifkin, all have been given out, so expect those soon if you were a part of that. And thanks for watching, everybody. I don't know why I said we. I'll be back tomorrow, solo casting again, the third place match and the finals. Finals should be fun, best of 9, TvZ. And then after that, a show match between the US of A and France, set up by, I believe, a Romy, so it should be fun. Enjoy watching the Olympics, I suppose, if that's what you're going to do this weekend. And thanks for all the nice comments. Good feedback is welcome. Terrible feedback is not, as I already slapped a couple people down in chat for. Just slap. But hope you did enjoy the solo cast. Would have loved to have a co-caster for this, whether that be Rifkin, Fear Dragon, I mean even Nate. That all would have been awesome. I know people just in general prefer co-casting because then I don't miss nearly as much. But hopefully I did a well enough, good enough job talking English, because I'm so good at that you didn't mind, and hopefully you just enjoyed the games. Even if it wasn't the most back and forth series, I still think they were fun, and hopefully tomorrow will be even better. Bye!